Welcome to this episode of the Good Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Good. We've arrived at a milestone, 300 conversations, 6 years of sitting across from some of the most significant thinkers in leadership, learning, and human performance. Researchers, best-selling authors, and practitioners who shape how leadership actually gets done. A number like that deserves more than a single episode, so I'm marking it with something I've never done before, a milestone series. Over the coming weeks, I'm bringing you a select group of senior thought leaders who have most shaped how we think and lead today. My guest for this episode is Dr. David Ulrich, often called the father of modern HR. For over 4 decades, he's been asking a deceptively simple question. How do organizations turn talent into capability that actually creates value for customers, investors, and communities, not just themselves? His outside-in framework has changed how HR is structured, how leaders think about culture, and how we define leadership brands. Welcome to the Good Leadership Podcast. I'm Charles Good. This show is built for leaders, managers, and high achievers who want to think better, grow faster, and perform under pressure. Each episode, I sit down with leading researchers, best-selling authors, and experts to uncover what actually works, the practical tools, proven strategies, and insights you can use when the pressure is real. Because in a world that keeps changing, the edge belongs to those who can outlearn what worked yesterday, outthink what's coming next, and outperform when it counts. Welcome to the program, Dave.
Charles, what a thrill. Congratulations.
So, Dave, you've spent over 4 decades studying how organizations turn talent into capability. From where you sit now, watching organizations respond to AI, what's the most important thing you understand, or maybe what's changing about how to build capability?
You know, capability and competence have different terms. So let me just get my terms clear, and you don't have to agree with them. We talk a lot about individual. And for me, it's individual competence. The word competence goes back to the 1930s with Hay Group and Bob Rock and Paul Rock. And you have competence, know-how, problem solving, and competence as an individual grows. For me, capability is what the company is good at doing. And we have found in our research that individual competence, you as a leader, matters. But organizational capability, the team that we work with, matters even more in delivering outcomes. And those words get used interchangeably. I love to talk about both your competence as a leader and the capability you build and the leadership depth inside your company. And both of those have to happen.
I love that distinction between the two, and we're going to get more into those. Really, the first question is around why are so many smart, committed leaders like myself, Charles, working harder than ever before right now, but feeling less confident about the future than I did 5 to 10 years ago?
You know, we could spend forever on it. Let's just stipulate VUCA. We've all heard it. It's been around for 30 years. It's real. We live in a world of incredible change and uncertainty and volatility. And you put on top of that AI. I can't believe we've actually gone 3 minutes and 30 seconds without saying AI 3 times. AI changes some of that world. And so AI provides information. It's like factory workers saying, oh my gosh, you have an assembly line. It's going to change my job. Well, AI changes the information-rich jobs in the same way. And we as leaders need to get aware of that. We need to manage that. We need to see what we uniquely contribute.
Well, and what you have said to me in the past too, which I love, is it's, really HI plus AI provides that difference. AI gets you to parity because everyone's using the same tools now. It's that HI, the human intelligence, that really makes the difference.
Let me push a little bit. By the way, one of the things that I want to model is learning agility, which I know you believe in, I believe in, and I'm going to demonstrate learning agility from when we've talked before. I now think the formula is HI times AI, not plus, but times. The reason it's a multiplier is if either of those are low, they're both low on a 10-point scale. If you get 8 plus 2, if it's plus, that's 10 out of 20. If you get 8 times 2, that's 16 out of 100. And that multiplier forces us to be good at both. The second thing I'll add, I think HI is human ingenuity. And let me tell you why I like ingenuity. Ingenuity is intelligence, but it's not just raw intelligence, it's applied intelligence. And so as I've been playing with AI, no question, we'll talk about that. AI gives you parity, it gives you capacity, it gives you algorithms that allow you to do a lot of things quickly. Human ingenuity gives you, I think, 4 things, and this is my latest thinking, that will be changed by the time I join your 400th episode. Human ingenuity, if you're a leader, this is what you bring to a problem, a vision of the future. AI doesn't predict the future. It can summarize the past. Second, innovation in the present. AI is not innovative. It's a great integrator. It's not innovative. It doesn't create the new stuff. Third is emotion in the relationship. AI is fake emotion. And I get really scared. My wife who's on my, I have a picture of her in my office. She's a psychologist. She said there's research that AI is fake psychology. AI coaching is really dangerous because I want the human emotion, the empathy, and then wisdom in decisions. Now, if you look at learning, vision, where are we going? Innovation, how do we get there in a creative way? Emotion, empathy, feeling the personal commitment, and wisdom in decision. I think those pieces are human ingenuity. And if you're a leader and you look at a problem, let AI give you some insight that are really good, summarize what's done. Do you have a vision? And I love the sign that you have in your office. Vision is the direction we've got to have. Do I believe that innovation? Am I able to come up with something creative that nobody's seen before? Am I able to build emotion in the relationship and empathy and care? And then finally, do I have a sense of wisdom, a sense of real judgment in the decisions I make? So I call that the view of HI, VIEW, vision. And I like stupid things that help me remember vision, innovation, empathy, and wisdom. But AI times HI. That's where I would probably go today.
I love that. The multiplier effect versus just adding it. Completely agree with that. And I've seen this at scale as well, this decoupling of capability from output. And I know we've differentiated between competence and capability, but the output looks better and better because AI is polishing it, but the person and the organization aren't necessarily getting stronger. So, from your vantage point, what happens to customers, investors, employees when an organization's output races ahead of its actual capability?
I think it's a risk that it's not going to sustain. In fact, I'm amazed that we've now gone 7 minutes and we've not talked about where I begin a discussion about leadership or about individual competence or organizational capability. And I begin the discussion around stakeholder value. What's happening to create value? Leaders, a leader is not what you know and do, it's how what you know and do creates value for another person. And that logic of value creation is so critical. I've been married 50 years and I'm proud of it. Early in our marriage, I got my wife tickets to sporting events. And her comment was very gracious: enjoy yourself. My tickets to sporting events didn't create value for her. And so when I get my spouse or a friend a gift, the principle is value is defined by the receiver. And so if you're a leader, don't start with your skills and knowledge and abilities. Start with who's the receiver I'm trying to influence? Who am I creating value for? And once I get that, it's an employee, it's a customer, it's an investor, it's the business itself as an entity. If I'm not creating value through what I know, do, and feel as a leader, I'm not having impact. And that to me becomes Steve Covey calls it the North Star. A lot of people call it the ultimate purpose, whatever you want to call it. I love to talk about who are the stakeholders I'm creating value for. That's where I'm headed. And then what is it I know and do that differentiates, that's value unique for me? It's, by the way, that's often a scary question because when we had 3 kids, I'll just be personal so people can know I'm not an avatar. My wife was doing a PhD. I was busy with university work. My gift to her that created the most value was to take the 3 kids, we celebrate Christmas, from Christmas to New Year's and give her a week alone. And that finally hit me. That's kind of scary. The most value I can give you is to leave you alone without me. And after a while, I said, I think we need to redefine value here because I hope it's being together. But that idea is really helpful for me. Value is defined by the receiver.
How about for a listener that's listening? What's maybe a concrete signal in their week that would tell them they're busy building activity instead of creating that competence, that capability at an individual level?
Let me frame it as a leader. As a leader in the middle of an organization, a frontline leader, a supervisor, here's the question that's one of my favorite questions. You interact with somebody today. Did that person leave the interaction with you feeling better or worse about themselves? And you say, Dave, give me the data. I don't need any data. I interact, and Charles, you and I have had interactions over the years. I've never left an interaction without feeling better about myself. To me, that's leadership. That's leadership. And yeah, it's a gut feel, but it's real. Because think back for all of us, we've interacted with our leaders, and I can't ever talk about the deans at the business school, but we've interacted with our leaders, and you go away feeling, oh crap, I'm not living up to their expectations, or oh, I made a mistake. As a leader, what can I do to help someone? And it's really easy when it's good news. Congratulations, you met your goal, you got a bonus, everything's great, everything's rosy. What about when it's bad news? How do you lead so that they get value from that interaction with you? And my sense is that's really the human ingenuity. By the way, algorithms gives false positive. They tell you you're great because your Anthropic or your Chat GPT or your Claude knows you and they'll tell you how great you are all the time. That's not what I'm talking about. This is true emotion and feeling that I care about you and I want you to succeed and you need to improve. And I'm going to give you the direct feedback. I'm not going to hide from it. Let's go together and make it happen. That for me is the simplest test of leadership one of the simplest tests I've ever found.
And it's so critical to have that human level interaction to receive that kind of feedback because you're right. In the AI age, especially, there's this illusion of competence that it's harder for leaders to see if they're actually getting better because the output is improving. They're getting more accolades, more praise versus their capability underneath improving. So they feel a lot better. And you're right, AI gives you just kind of conflates those two so that you really aren't sure, are you getting better? Am I improving? But when you have that honest feedback from someone that you trust, and you get that from whether it's a colleague, whether it's another coach, whether it's a mentor, that is always more valuable because you know it's coming from the right person wanting something for you that's going to develop you and move you in the right direction.
I'm going to go a level deeper here because it's very concrete. And I know the audience we share today is after the theory is great and we can do all kinds of theory. I'm coaching a leader and an employee made a mistake. And this company did a whole lot of things right and a whole lot of things wrong. They sent emails with performance review, which is not the best way to do it. And I made a deal with this leader. Do not hit send until you talk to me. So he sent me an email. I'm going to send it. You made a big mistake. It's going to cost us millions of dollars. If you don't fix it, you're fired. And I said, don't send it. Do not send. And he said, well, what do I do? And again, in the world of simplicity, 3 sentences. Number 1, I care about you. Number 2, you have great potential at this company and you made a big mistake and it's going to cost us a lot of money. Do not hide from the accountability. It's not you as a person, but you did make a mistake. And then sentence 3, what can we learn? This is that learning agility. What can we learn as we go forward? And I said, add those 3 sentences. Don't take away, by the way, don't say if you fail, you're fired. That's not helpful. But I care. That's the emotion of human ingenuity. You have great potential. Let's discover what it is and let's learn together. And I think if we as leaders can begin to make that happen, that's not the fake AI. I get frustrated, and I'll share a frustration. I'm going a little too long. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and I am realizing I can recognize the AI algorithms who are the responses. Some of them are critical, some of them are positive. And I've discovered I don't want to have a dialogue with an AI algorithm. Some of the criticisms are, by the way, it's good to learn from criticism. I love the criticism. That's the most healthy thing I can find is the naysayers who are positive. But I don't want to have a long-term dialogue with an algorithm. That's not going to go anywhere. I want to have a dialogue with, and I'm going to go back to my term of human ingenuity. Does that person have a vision of the future? Are they playing where we're going? Do they give us a sense of that future? Are they innovative? I see a lot of AI stuff that's just repackaging old wine in new bottles. Let's repackage. And you know so much. You've had so many people on these 300 shows, and you go, wow, that sounds an awful lot like. Do they have emotion and feeling? Is there a sense of passion? And then are they wise? Are they giving good decisions? Are they helping me turn that into action? To me, those criteria of human ingenuity, they leverage AI. My tag, well, I'll stop with that. We may get more into what AI does and what people do, but I am so excited about the leaders who can use AI to make a difference, not leaders who use AI to repackage.
Well, that leads great into the next area that I wanted to talk about with you is that in an era of AI, what actually still compounds for a leader? and what's at most risk of being lost, because we're not making the statement that don't use AI, just use it in the right way and
Yeah.
keep the human part of that. Make sure that the human is building their skills as well.
Again, I love simplicity. My graduate work decades ago and all of the work I've done for decades is around taxonomy, which nobody knows what it is and nobody cares. Taxonomy is the math and science of simplicity. How do you make complex things simple? Here's a simple message. AI gives me capacity. Capacity means it saves me time. I'll admit I'm doing a column and I say, wow, I remember something about X. That's Doug McGregor had theory X, theory Y. I just would love to reference that. I go into AI and I say, can you give me a quick summary of this idea? Super. Capacity saves me time. And we're seeing that happen, especially in routine tasks or other tasks in organizations. AI gives me capacity. HI, human capability that we're talking about, however we define it, gives me capability. And that's competence for the individual and capability for the organization. So, how do I spend that free time? And here's one of my greatest fears right now. If we let people dedicated to finance exclusively do AI, they're going to turn that capacity into headcount reduction. And so they're going to try to save money. I don't need all the people to do those reports. I don't need the people to do that editing. I don't need the people to do that summary. I can now get AI to do it. And so I don't need 10 people. I'll do 2 people or 1 person. Big mistake. And we're seeing college graduates now coming out, not having the jobs because the companies don't realize that AI can do that capacity, but you've got to take that time and energy and create capability. And then here's the tag I'll end with that delivers value to a stakeholder. A capability doesn't matter unless a value is created for a stakeholder. If we don't get a customer of value in the marketplace, we're not going to succeed. So, what can I do with a new college graduate that will help him or her save time? They're not going to be doing the same kind of reports and analytics that statistic and AI can do. What can they do that will help our customers buy more product? That is just such a fascinating question to me. And that's AI for capacity, human ingenuity for capability.
And that's a question that not many organizations, I fear, are still asking themselves and tying it like you just have. So the other part is really when all the senior leaders I see, they've built their judgment doing the early career work that AI now does. So if organizations automate the bottom rung or rungs of the ladder, what happens to the leadership pipeline that produces senior capability? And how should leaders be thinking about that right now?
We don't know. How's that for an honest answer? Let me give you the problem. And then I've talked to some brilliant folks, probably shouldn't name the companies, but who have thought about this and they're smart. Think of a pyramid. That's our classic organization. And so we bring people in, they move up the ladder. And by the time they get to the third out of 7 steps, they've learned the company and they're moving into more senior positions. We no longer have a pyramid, we have a diamond. So we have at the top, then we have wide middle management, and then we have a diamond at the bottom. We don't need to hire the pyramid. So, how do you manage people's career? Some companies are maintaining a pyramid. I just talked to a company yesterday, they're hiring 2,000 interns. And he said, we don't need all 2,000 interns. We're willing to be sloppy in our costs because we know out of those 2,000 interns, we'll find whatever percent who we want to keep. And it's worth paying the money to get the right people. Another company sort of keeping the pyramid. They're saying, we think the cost justification of the pyramid is so critical. Big company, 100,000 employees, we self-insure. If we don't have the pyramid with new employees at the front line, insurance rates for the older employees are going to take us crazy. That's, I thought, a very creative insight that our healthcare costs are a big chunk of our costs. When we get those new employees, they stay healthy and we're going to mitigate the cost of the pyramid. A second option is I think we're going to begin to find a new definition of career. You as an employee, by the way, I'm coaching tonight some college students, and I'm going to say you have an obligation to create a portfolio career. Don't assume you're going to go into a company like your mother and father and work up the stages. Go create a portfolio. What might that mean? Start a company, work in a different company, be on contract, be part-time. Go create a portfolio career that gives you skills that will help you grow. Be an Uber driver if that's 6 months and you want to do it. Don't just do a gap year, but do a gap year with careers. These are college students. They're scared, by the way. And I'm saying, go create your own portfolio career. 10 years later, when you go to that big company, they're bringing you in saying, we can orient you to our values quick enough because you know how to get adapted. We're bringing you in because you have, I'm going to use the terms you love to use, learning agility, for me, human ingenuity, vision, innovation. You've demonstrated in your portfolio career that you can make it happen. We believe we can train you on our culture that we used to take 10 years to get. I think onboarding those mid-career people is going to become so critical. By the way, that's the first time I've articulated it that clearly, and it's not. And so it's not clear. But option A, create a fake pyramid. Option B, encourage an eco career where you move around and we're going to bring you in. And we may not bring you in full time, but we're going to bring you in for a task because of a skill set you've got. And we believe we can make our culture part of your onboarding so that you fit quickly and come to high performance. I think we're going to see some of that as people begin to navigate their own career.
I love that insight, and that's such a novel approach as well. I haven't heard that before. So thank you for articulating that so clearly, which I know our listeners will be impressed with. So we've been talking about a lot about systems and organizational pipelines, but one of the reasons I wanted you as part of this series is that your writing reflects a lot of self-interrogation. You've changed your mind over your career many times. So looking back over your career, what's one realization that genuinely changed how you work, and how long did it take you to truly internalize it?
First of all, changing my mind, I think I call it learning. I get frustrated when I hear leaders or politicians who say, I've never changed my mind. And I'm going, good, I don't want to work with you. I mean, I think we have to be aware of the context in which we live. And let me go back. Those who may or may not have followed me, I've traveled a lot. I'm a professor, but did a lot of travel, 200, 250 flights a year for 20 years. COVID hits. There's no travel. And so I'm thinking, what's going on with my world? It's gone. There's no travel. There's no engagement. I'm not going to learn because I learned the best part not is giving the talk, but it's engaging with people at lunch and dinner and learning what's going on and getting the next talk. And it hit me. There's this thing called the internet, and we can do a podcast, and we can do webinars. And I thought somebody said, Dave, you have a face for radio and a personality for internet. Um, and I thought, I'm going to go try this stuff. I think we need to have the willingness to experiment. Look at what you're facing as a leader. In a world of uncertainty, what am I certain about? My world is uncertain. I don't know what I'm going to do. What am I certain about? I love to ask leaders that question. It'd be fun to ask you, Charles, what are you certain about? I can tell you what I'm certain about when COVID hit. I am certain that I want to learn. That is one of my driving agendas. I want to learn, and I want to learn things that will help others learn better. Okay, how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to go try webinars. I'm going to try podcasts. I'm going to do, TED Talks are not my forte because I like the engagement. And I start learning. And it's okay to make a mistake. Progress does not require perfection. In fact, progress requires imperfection. I encourage those leaders sitting there listening to this saying, what am I certain about? Can I apply that to the world I live in today? And I'm going to make progress. I'm going to make progress. Everything worth doing is not worth doing well. It's worth doing poorly. Progress doesn't require perfection, and that's part of learning. So anyway, that's my approach. I've had a lot of those. I mean, I read the books I wrote 15 years ago and I go, wow, that's too bad. And then I have people quoting those books and I'm going, oh, I'm so sorry. By the way, I still, given the time and place, good. That was good. And I hope the best is yet ahead. I hope the best is yet ahead. That's that ingenuity or learning that you talk about as well. Vision of the future, innovation in the present. I'm being redundant. Emotion and empathy in the relationships, and wisdom in the decisions and actions. I hope that's a part of everyone I'm working with. And my final caveat for those listening, one of the things I'm learning as I try to do the coaching and training that you and many others do. For a long time, I love to come tell my story. Here's my story based on my research, my experience. Now I am more committed than ever that my job is to help every person I coach, every person I teach, every person I write to in LinkedIn. Can I help you create your story? Can I help you create your story? And your story is not going to be my story. And how do I help you create your story that works for you? And I may not agree with your story, and that's great. So leaders help others create their story through the training we do.
Absolutely right. I couldn't agree with you more. Before we wrap up, love to talk about what the listeners could do this week, right now. So, if is there one thing a listener could start this week that would still be paying off 5 to 10 years from now? Perhaps one skill. And I know you and I talked about some of those skills before we started recording today. But from your vantage point, what would be that one skill that is going to compound over time for them?
Learn to observe what's going on in the world around me. And I got to put it in context. When I was a PhD student, I did well in undergraduate, so I got into a PhD program, and I had to take a course, required course in phenomenology. It's German philosophers in the 1700s, and you had to read a book or two a week if you do PhDs. I went to the head of the doctoral program and I said, "This is a required course." She said, "Yes." And I said, "Do I have to pass it?" And she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "What does required mean?" She said, "It shows up on the transcript." So I went to the professor and I said, "I just attended 1 week of 15. I'm going to take an F. Because for me to really understand this heavy duty phenomena stuff, it's going to wipe out everything else I can do. And I'd rather spend my time doing other stuff. That was early capacity of AI today. Anyway, net, I got an F in phenomenology. Now I think it's the most critical skill you need as a leader, even though I failed the course and didn't do a good job because I never took it. Look around. What do you see that doesn't make sense? Two firms in the same industry had the same earnings and they had different market value. Well, that's kind of weird. Boy, that leader got promoted when they didn't really have the skill set they needed. Why? That employee, I love being with that employee. When I leave, I feel better. Why? And just, I think, observe the phenomena around you. And I'm going to give a real example. I post every week on LinkedIn. It usually starts with a phenomena. I had some material printed at a print shop a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, for a neighborhood event. And it was a personal event. And the printer's a friend. He said, "Dave, don't pay me for it. Pay me forward. Pay it forward. In other words, pass it on." By the way, that stuck with me. That just stuck with me. So I wrote a column about it this week. What does it mean to pay it forward? Charles, that's what you do. I mean, you pay it forward. Are you passing on? So my advice to leaders, observe the world around you. What's something that just triggers, that sits in the back of my mind? How do I make sense out of that? And what can I do to build my story to interpret that phenomena? So in retrospect, I would still probably fail the phenomenology course, but I'd probably fail it without intention. I mean, I failed it intentionally by not going. It's even worse, by the way, if you go to the course and fail. But I hope I haven't failed phenomenology since, that I'm observing. I'm really trying to listen and hear. I mean, we had a pre-call. That's my notes on our pre-call. I've got 3 or 4 things. I circled 3 or 4 of them that I go, well, I just heard something there that I've got to think about. This is my call yesterday. I circled some stuff. I am trying like anything to pay attention to little things that trigger in me. Leaders, be triggered. That back of the hair stuff. If you don't have hair, then wherever that spirit talks to you, listen to the phenomena that you need to think about.
That's so critical. You're right. And with this day and age, with everyone in execute mode all the time, not only observing it, but reflecting on it, that I see is so valuable that so many leaders just don't do enough of, because you can't just go from one meeting to the next meeting to writing this article to publishing this book. It's really important as well to have those downtimes.
My wife is a very good psychologist, and she says, "Dave, one things I admire is you take downtime." I love to read novels that are not. I mean, my undergraduate degree is in English. You got a degree reading books. Yesterday, I'm feeling stressed. I go sit outside in our backyard and spend an hour and a half reading a novel. And you'd be embarrassed with who they are. I mean, they're not romance novels. I'm not going to go there, but these are escape novels. My wife says, "What was the book about?" "Save the World." Okay. By the way, it used to be Seinfeld. For those who are old enough, I'd watch 2 Seinfeld episodes and I go, that was great. And I'm not sure I recommend that to everybody. Find what works for you. Find what works for you. I love it. I'm gonna give you a challenge. You're doing a series after 300. I hope you interview yourself as one of the speakers at the series, or find somebody you trust and let them interview you. As I talk to you, I walk away feeling better about myself because you just have this incredible breadth. You probably can't remember all 300 episodes, but there are some of those things that just tag you. Your story about Ted Williams, your story about vision, football. I hope you'll interview yourself or find somebody and say, I want to be on the series too, because you have much to offer. And so that's my encouragement to you.
Thank you, Dave. Final question, just to leave our listeners with some hope that if someone spent the next 2 to 3 years deliberately building this capability in themselves and others, while everyone else kind of chased AI, where would that leave them, in your opinion, in terms of their leadership brand and the options they have?
I love the question, leadership brand. Leadership brand is, what is it you want to be known for by those you work with? I hope that would leave them with the opinion that they are creative, they are innovative, they see a future. I'm going to give one other quick metaphor. I know we're going a little long on your time, so I appreciate leaders. Some prophets, if you use theology, tell people they're going to hell if they don't repent. Other prophets tell people, here's what heaven looks like. Let's go get there. I think those leaders in 2 years would be the innovative, the visionaries. I think they'd be empathy. Dave, I want to talk. Sam, Sally, Martha, Monica, Carrie, Michael. I'm struggling today. I'm really sorry. That's who I want to be as a leader. When one of my friends is struggling, I hope I'm on the top of a call list. And that's happened in the last 48 hours.
Wow,
Dave, something bad happened. Can we chat? I hope I'm on the call list.
that's powerful. Thank you so much, Dave, for joining me on this series and all these amazing and valuable insights. What I'm taking away from this is both a warning and an invitation. The warning is that AI can make our organizations look more capable than they really are, at least for a while. And if we stop there, we're essentially borrowing trust from our customers, our investors, our employees without paying down the principal. The invitation is that capability is still a very human project. It's in the questions we ask others, the people we develop, and the habits we build around connecting our work to someone else's experience. I can't thank you enough, Dave, for joining me today. Remind our listeners how they can reach out to you, connect with you, and learn more about your work.
Join me on LinkedIn and make comments. I don't need superfluous comments. Don't say, oh, that was wonderful. That's not helpful. Be thoughtful. Show me that you're thinking. Engage, and I'll engage back. That's where I love to engage.
Thank you all for listening. And until next time, remember, it's not what you know, but what you do consistently and differently that makes a difference. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Good Leadership Podcast. Remember, great ideas only matter when they change what you do next. So choose one insight from today's conversation and put it into practice this week. If this episode was valuable, follow the show and share it with someone who would benefit. And until next time, remember, the edge belongs to those who outlearned what worked yesterday, who can outthink what's coming next so that they can outperform when it counts.